Father God, thank you so much for this time that we get to share together, just examining an aspect of life that we believe that you have something to say about that aspect of life. We believe that you have something that you want to tell us about how to manage technology, this tool that you've given us. God, I just pray for a wealth of wisdom and understanding around each table, that we would grow together through this process, and that everybody who feels the burden on their heart to share would be able to in this time together. God, bless this food unto our bodies, bless the fellowship of believers coming together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. We are going to start our time together. Pastor Scott is going to share on 3 questions we should ask ourselves about the technology that we use. 3 questions that we should ask ourselves about the technology we use. And Tammy said we should time you. She said throw the timer up, but this is going to be the best 3 hours of your life. Amen. So, Scott, take it away.
All right, thank you. Hey, first of all, if you are needing one of the handouts, raise your hand, and we may not have gotten enough printing because we got a lot more folks than we expected. Sorry, there's not quite as much food as we thought either, because we have more folks. So we'll get some more of those printed and gotten your way. Sorry, we're out of pizza. Unless you're really desperate, in the fridge in the youth room is half of a pizza left over from a week ago Wednesday. So seriously, guys, any of those teen guys, just go for it. What is technology? Here, from the official Scott Gardziella dictionary for the purpose of tonight, this is the definition I'm using of technology, and it's important, so pay attention. It's an object or process that helps me accomplish a task or improve my life. An object or a process that helps me accomplish a task or improve my life. So in general, we're surrounded by technology. If you have a pen or a pencil in your hand or at your table, that is some kind of a technology. It was invented by a human being to help improve your life. The lights that we have are technology. They may have been oil lamps once upon a time, or candles, or electric, and then LED electric lights that's constantly changing, but all of that is technology. For this event, we're going to be focusing specifically on computer technology, internet, phones in your pockets, smartphones, and so on. My job is to create a foundation for our discussion, sort of a biblical foundation. So let's go right to the Bible. What do you think is, based on my definition, the first appearance of technology? Something that was made that's not like organic, that is demonstrated as created in some way in order to accomplish a task or improve technology. A wheel, possibly. My guess, there's different things that occurred but aren't mentioned. So I'm after first mention. I'll tell you the first one that might surprise you. I would call this, in a sense, technology. And it was created by God after creation. He created clothing for man and woman after they were evicted from the garden out of animal skin. And that was good. Another thing that you might call technology that we see very early in Genesis is guarding the tree of life is an angel. And what is the angel holding? A sword. That's something extra, kind of beyond themselves. And so I established that because I want us to understand technology isn't evil, right? God is using this extra thing. We can go through Genesis and we begin to look at human technology, which is more what we're focusing on tonight. We see Cain building a city. We see people living in tents. That's a kind of a technology. We see people called the father of the harp and the pipes, or using bronze and iron, is all mentioned early in Genesis. What did Noah build? He built something, a pretty cool technology, right? Float above the water. Let's call it a boat. It's an ark. A few chapters later, that technology, the human ingenuity, is used to build a tower meant to be, kind of show the power of humanity, the Tower of Babel. And so now technology is going awry a little bit. Throughout the Bible, we see good technology like writing, roads, transportation. We see tools of war and death, like a cross. Here was an interesting thing in my just quick overview. When you get to the end of Revelation, which is kind of a recreation of all things, right? We come full circle, and God gives us a new heaven and a new earth. But as God is the creator of all things, he created us to be creators. He created us to be creators. And human creation, i.e. technology, endures into the new creation. So we see a heavenly Jerusalem come down, and whether it's metaphorical or literal, the demonstration is that there is a city as well as trees. There are gates and walls, and there's writing on the gates. So some things that human beings created endures and is good. So technology can certainly be good. What I want you to understand is technology is neither good nor evil, and so we might want to say, oh, well, then it's neutral. It's just bland. It by itself is neutral. And I want to challenge that tonight a little bit. And I hope by the time we're done, you'll see that just the actuality of having something outside ourselves that promises us some kind of help begins to change who we are and how we view the world. So I don't know that if I want to call it neutral necessarily. So the question in front of us tonight is, how do we steward human creation? How do we determine if it's helping or harming, if it's good or if it's bad? And in this gray areas of life where there aren't thou shalt nots or thou shalts in the Bible, we have to ask wise questions and use literature like the Proverbs and so on. How do we proceed in wisdom? Because there isn't a verse in the Bible that says thou shalt not spend more than 30 minutes a day on Candy Crush, or thou shalt not have a Facebook account or something. You can't find that. So what do we use? We use wisdom. I selected two foundational verses for us tonight. And by the way, this, what I'm going to give you tonight, is applicable beyond technology. This is applicable for anything that's not specifically mentioned in the Bible. How do I determine whether this is good or wise? Okay, and whether it's something I should do. The first one is 1 Corinthians 6, verse 12. Chapter 6, verse 12. The context here is the church is moving away from legalism under Judaism. They're kind of feeling their freedom, their liberty, and like, oh, well, we can do whatever we want, right? Because we're not under the law. And Paul says there's liberty, but then there's also license, the feeling like you can license to do what you want. We want to live in Christian freedom and liberty. So I have a phone, but is it beneficial? That's the question that's being asked. Let me read to you 1 Corinthians 6:12. Paul's quoting like an imaginary person. Hey, everything is permissible for me, yay! And then his response is, but not everything is beneficial. Like it might not be against God's law, but is it good for you? Everything is permissible for me. And then he says, but I won't be mastered or dominated literally by anything. You ever been dominated by your technology? Come on. It's kind of calling to you. Yep, it's there. So that's a key thing. So we need to ask the question, not what's so wrong with it. We need to ask, what's right with it? Okay, I get. Let me talk to the high schoolers and stuff in the room. A lot of times we do with the parents. It's like, well, why can't I? What's so bad about it? Good response. What's so good about it? Okay, that's the question we should be asking. Another key verse, foundation for us, is Romans 12, 1 and 2. It was mentioned briefly this morning. I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer yourselves or offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual worship. And then here's the key. Do not conform to the pattern of the world. Do not be conformed. It's happening at you. Don't let it happen to you. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So the question is, the world's always trying to squeeze us, conform us, shape us to look just like everyone else and do everything just like everyone else. I call it the squeeze, and it's happening all the time. Don't be squeezed. Don't be conformed. Be transformed from the inside out. So here's 3 questions that we need to ask regularly, and then we're going to talk about it at our table, to evaluate, are we stewarding technology well? And again, these are applicable to other gray area questions as well. Number 1 would be what I call a question of intention. We need to ask, what is its purpose, and is it keeping its promise? What's its purpose, and is it keeping its promise? Let's start with something easy. I have some technology in my garage. It's called a lawnmower. Just a good old-fashioned, basic push lawnmower. It once was self-propelled, but that died a long time ago, and I couldn't fix it. Now I'm pushing the weight of the self-propelled around as well, and it won't die, so I can get a new one. And I just keep pushing this thing around. And it's, it's helpful. It's helping me mow my lawn. What's the promise of the lawnmower? You can keep your yard beautiful, at least not raggedy, and it'll make your job a lot easier than going out there with scissors. All right, I like this technology. It's keeping its promise. Pretty good. We're going to come back to the lawnmower in a little bit. So now let's talk about the phone. This has evolved so fast, we might not even know. What is its purpose anyway? Is it to call people? right? Any of the teenagers call people. My phone ring, I'd freak out. What do I do with this? I have to talk to. It's for texting and for other such things. So what is the purpose? We might say, well, it's to communicate with family or to do work more efficiently. Those are good purposes. So the question is, do I communicate more effectively with family with this device? I mean, I get to Zoom with my grandkids in Buffalo. That's cool. But I also find myself sometimes sitting next to my wife with my face watching football or reading news, and I'm not communicating better with family. So is it keeping its promise? Kind of not. And what is its purpose? At work, is it helping me be more efficient? Yes, I can communicate with staff, I can communicate with people, but it's also easier to be distracted from work. So technology can be a struggle there. Let's talk about Facebook for a second. 2017, Facebook rebranded their mission statement to this. This is the mission of Facebook: to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. Okay, so this is the promise of Facebook. This is the purpose of Facebook: to build community and bring the world together. Is it keeping its promise? What do you think? Mixed, right? Kind of. You get to connect with people. Sometimes it drives people apart. So we need to evaluate what's going on. Has technology that promises connection helped us become a more connected humanity, or has it in some ways made connection and disconnection at the same time? Right? You see it all the time. People right next to each other not talking. Information. Wow, what power I have here to find stuff out, and I do it all the time. But how do I know what's true and what's not true? Is there also disinformation that's being spread and spread quickly? Yes. Freedom. Man, I have this thing. I can go places. I can, it can bring money with me digitally. Or have I become dependent on it? Have I become addicted to it? Is it beginning to master me? I will not be mastered by anything, Paul said. Or is it beginning to master me? So the question of intention, what's its purpose? Do I even know anymore? And is it keeping its promise to me? Second question is a question of influence. How is it helping and or harming me? And then we don't want to just be selfish. And society. How is it helping or harming me and society? And my guess is it's doing the both at the same time frequently. Let me give you an example of how technology has changed society. I could be like an old guy up here telling you all these stories of what I think. But here's one that's really clear to me. When my sister was dating and a guy wanted to call my sister, they had one phone number called the Gardziella phone number, right? 630-668-0885. And this phone used to be on a table, but eventually got one on a wall. That was really cool. Rang. And depending on who you were, you ran to the phone because you wanted, especially if you thought a guy was going to call, my sister, run to the phone. And then when you get the phone, it's corded and stuck to a wall. So when you talk to that boyfriend, guess what? Everybody gets to hear, unless, which she got pretty good at doing, stretching it all the way down the hallway and just inside the bathroom door and shut the door. And now anyone who walked in the kitchen gets clotheslined because the cord is kind of running all the way across there. Now, I like having a cordless phone. Now I like having a wireless phone. I can go to any room I want. I can call in the basement. But here's what happens in my house. So if I'm calling my mom, instead of sitting and listening very well to my mom can talk a little bit, and it could be happen to my wife. It could even happen to you. I can kind of listen and I can fix, my water heater at the same time. Except I can't. I think I can, but I can't. So I take it with me. Is that good or is that bad? What's going on? So here's the deal. When this boyfriend called for my sister in the day, who might answer the phone? Little brother. You have to deal with me. But guess what? You get to know the family. Dad might answer the phone. And now the guy has to say, "Hi, Mr. Gardziella, this is so-and-so. Can I talk to Michelle?" And to get to know Dad. I think that was good. And now it's gone. Now you just dial directly to the person you want, and it bypasses all of that. And we lose something. We've lost something. And I think that happens time and time and time again. We'll talk a little bit about that at the table. So here's another thing with phones, and I notice You know, so many people have phones, and now we've gotten into this thing. It's like you cannot leave the house if you do not have one of these, or you are somehow terribly unsafe. And I remember when they becoming popular. You're a terrible parent if you let your kid go out of the house and drive somewhere without a phone. What kind of a parent are you? Now, I get it. I had kids, and I felt better when they had it. I like to be able to, know where they are. My oldest daughter, my only daughter, youngest child, for much of the time, she lets us Google Map track her because she's kind of a single female on her own, and she doesn't mind that. That's great. She just switched phones, and we noticed the other day, it's like, we don't know where she is. I mean, she's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, but I don't know where. And I can't make her put it back on her phone because she's older. But so here's what happens now. It's a great thing. I want my kid to have the phone in case something happens, or they get a flat tire. But now what happens is they get an issue, and rather than learning to solve it yourself, what do? Text dad, text mom, help. And are we learning as our smartphones making us smarter, or the other? Okay, those are the questions we have to do. The other thing to be aware of is that technology is changing at a much more rapid pace than 20 years ago or 100 years ago. And that's fine, it's gonna keep happening. Scientists tell us it's gonna keep happening exponentially. The problem is that we can't keep up with processing, is it good or bad? Does that make sense? When technology changed every year, we have a year to figure it out. When technology changes every month, we have a month to figure it out. When it seems like it's changing, we cannot keep up, but we have to. We have to. So it offers more and easier and faster, but more and easier and faster is not always good. I have a lawnmower, so I can mow my lawn faster, or I can just mow more lawn. And we end up with that. And maybe that ends up with using more energy. Maybe that creates more pollution. Who knows? I love Amazon. I love being able to look at my phone. I can click and order it, and it arrives at my house. But when it doesn't arrive in 2 days from Southern California to Northern Michigan, I start getting irritated. Because you used to tell me it was 2 days, and now it's like 4 days. You're not keeping your promise to me, Amazon. It's changed me. I have expectations now that I didn't used to have. And if you don't think that's true, that it hasn't changed you or society, I don't think you're watching. More information just means more to evaluate. It's like going to a restaurant and be given a 26-page menu. You'd freak out. I don't even know what to do with all this. That's kind of where we're at. There's this, and so that's why if you're like me, I've got like a news app thing, and you just flip, headline. That one looks interesting. Click on it, read the first 3 lines. Next one. And we're processing, but not really gaining knowledge. Now, it's not just the internet. Tammy reminded me that once upon a time, before I had this, it was Time Magazine. They used to show up at my house, and I'd kind of, flip through that, and it would take up my time. But I digested more information. So, intention. Why do I even have this? And is it keeping its promise to me? Influence. How is it changing who I am? Am I becoming a more impatient person, a more dependent person? How's it changing society, and is that good? And then the last question is, for Christians, is the one I call idolatry, a question of idolatry. Does this draw me to God or distract me from Him? To or distract from. It's a question of focus. Can I even engage God anymore? And sometimes we engage God in the wow of worship on a Sunday. Sometimes we engage God in the emptiness. And we live in a world full of distraction. I think we are afraid of empty moments. We don't know what to do with them. In a book written by a man named Steve Lawrence called The Jesus-Centered Life, he says this: most people fear boredom more than any other everyday threat. I'm stuck for a second. I don't know what to do to engage myself. Reach for this. And we're trying to be authentic here. I can just tell you this is how it works. Tammy and I can be sitting, on the couch. Maybe she's reading. Maybe I'm doing something. Maybe we watched a show and stop. Tammy has to go to the bathroom, or she's going to go get something to drink. And as soon as she leaves the room, because that's paused, out of my pocket comes this. Just check any texts. Just check some news. We used to have gaps in our lives. And in those gaps, we had moments to think and engage God. It's what Lawrence calls mini Sabbaths. Many moments to just, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the space, process what we just saw or heard and talk to God, and now we fill them. We fill them. I want to encourage you, maybe if nothing else you get tonight, is to recommit yourself to let God be the God of your gaps. Because I think this is the God of my gaps right now. Whether I'm at the store, whether I'm waiting in line, whether I'm at the doctor's office, this becomes the God of my gaps. We need to let God be that so that we can be still. What does the verse say? Do you know this one? Be still and know that I am God. We're not good at the be still anymore. So the issue is one of focus. What's at the center? Let me just go back to Revelation. When we get into the early chapters of Revelation, there's a scene of heaven, and there's a throne. And on the throne is God Almighty. And eventually we see also, and the Lamb. And around the throne are 24 elders. And in the middle around the throne are these living creatures. There's this sense that God is at the center of it all, and everything else is revolving around this. That's worship. That's focus. Or is this at the center? I think that's the question that we need to be asking. So this last Wednesday, I came into work and discovered, tragedy above all tragedies, I left my phone at home. And now I have to decide, do I go back and get it? If I were going to be here all day without it, I would have gone back and gotten it. But I knew I was meeting Tammy at lunchtime, so I figured I can wait till lunchtime. It was a horrible morning. Like, I keep reaching in my pocket. Oh, yeah, I don't have that. I could say, oh, I don't have that. And then I thought, well, it's okay, because mainly all I need is like texts, you know, and because I can't get texts on my computer right now, so that's okay. If I get a text, I'll have Tammy check it, and she can. And then after I got several texts, she's going, just come home and get your phone. I don't want to be the person telling you, you know, all about your texts. And it calls to us. It shapes us. It is not neutral. God created, and after he created everything, he said it is good. So as we talk about technology at our tables, can we say we created human beings and it is good? Bad? Most often, and it is mixed. That's the lesson I want you. Everything human beings create is mixed. And so we've got to sort out what of it's good and what of it is not good. Being a steward of human creation.
All right, at this time, we are going to have Norm Byers and Naomi Gardner come up, and we're going to have a little conversation. These are two of the wisest people I know. If you want to sit right here, Naomi, that would be great. And we are going to just have a conversation about technology. Naomi, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do to start?
Yeah, so my name is Naomi. My name is Naomi, and I am a nurse. So I work at the health department 4 days a week, working with moms and babies in their maternal infant health program. And then 1 day a week, I am doing ultrasounds at the Pregnancy Care Center. So, great piece of technology.
Yes. Very good. Now are we good? Are we unmuting each other? How about now? Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, so you use technology at the Pregnancy Care Center quite a bit.
Quite a bit, yeah.
And
ultrasound.
I actually got to see that piece of technology up close and personal when my wife, we found out we were pregnant. And so you were the first person that we kind of called to see what we call baby
peanut.
shrimp, because at that time, at the ultrasound, it just looked like a little shrimp hanging out.
Picture on my desk.
You have that picture on your desk?
Pray for that little peanut.
So that's a beautiful piece of technology that makes me cry when I think about it. But can you just briefly, and Norm, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Hi. I think we all know Norm, Pastor Norm. And I just want to ask you guys real quick, can you unpack just how your relationship with technology has progressed, like growing up as a young person? What did technology look like in your home? Did your family have rules around it? Or was it kind of a free-for-all? Did you even have technology?
Yeah.
Or was it like, you know, there was an outhouse out back and no, I'm kidding. Go
So
ahead.
with my clients, they always want to know how old I am. So I tell them, well, when I was growing up, I had a party line for my first phone, the kind where you pick up and you hear if anybody else is talking, and then you wait till they're not talking anymore, and then you can talk on the phone. So, that puts me about 50 years old. But I actually just grew up in a county that had 8,000 people in it, no stoplight. So we had party lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I think cell towers came in about 2008, which changed things, obviously. But we still had good old dial-up through college. So I am a millennial, but, I identify more with boomers. So, but I think we had a lot of conversations, as technology progressed in just that kind of like Pastor Scott was talking, we have to think about this. It's not neutral. So it has interrupted our lives, and how do we use it wisely?
Yeah.
So there's things that are sin, right, pretty clearly, pornography, but there are great things about technology like communicating with family, and where are those wisdom principles, looking at the Proverbs, a lot of things like what do I set in front of my eyes, and how is that affecting me?
Yeah.
So we had a lot of conversations about it, and then I think I finally got a phone when I was like 26. It's a good old candy bar kind. But yeah, the last few years trying to figure out more like, what does this look like in a smartphone world?
Yes. And that's why I have Naomi on this panel, because I just talking to you about how your family navigated using technology. You guys were not early adopters, and that was intentional. And I just want to say she is a wise, wise woman, and one of my wife's favorite people to go out on a coffee date with, because you just have just a wealth of knowledge. And I think your family's smart implementation of technology helped with that. And they're godly, godly people.
They're great.
But yeah. Norm, what do you give me the rundown?
I'm a 70s kid. I was born in the 70s,
Yes.
so 5 stations. I remember when Fox came into existence.
Wow,
you know.
wow.
Yeah, rotary phone. Is that what you were talking about, Scott? The shishing, shishing, shishing with the long cord.
We had one of those too.
Yeah. I remember about 1983, my best friend Bobby Sherman had an Atari, the first one out. So we played Demon Attack and different games like that. So, I didn't really have, it was a free-for-all for me. My parents didn't really have much of, thoughts on that, and it didn't seem to be too harmful. It kept the kids busy.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So that's sort of the way I grew up. So Brenda, did we have that bag phone? That was like the first phone. Did anybody have one of those? Remember? Raise your hand. Here, this is your phone. It's really big. I remember Telly Savalas had a phone in his car in the 70s. I don't know how he pulled that off, but anyway, the bald-headed guy that I thought was ugly back then. But anyway.
Now you think bald is handsome.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a question that I want to ask you guys. What does technology interaction look like in your daily life today? Like, do you need it for your job? And how do you interact with it on like a daily basis as far as navigating what you're doing with it?
Yeah, so I use a lot of technology communicating with my moms that I see on maternal infant, and most of them won't call, so texting is it.
Yep.
And then, of course, at the pregnancy center, it's not phone technology, but the ultrasound is relatively new in technology, and it's incredible. You can just see inside the womb. It's amazing. So yeah, lots of technology. I think personally, one of the things I'm learning is if I'm going back and forth with someone more than 3 times, just pick up the phone and call.
As far as texting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
Yeah, I definitely use technology for communication. It's very handy with family and with work, organizational things. It's definitely, I was thinking through like how many different ways technology helps, like with research for a sermon or, again, communication and, there's all kind, like I was telling at my table, one of the apps that I have, it's called Logos, and it just it's like the whole library. I used to have this big library, and I wound up selling all the books because I have it online and on my phone. I can study from my phone or my computer and can open up, a 5-volume big
set
Anchor Bible dictionary and look and read the articles. And so, hugely helpful, for those kinds of things. So yeah, it's been a big help in many ways. I remember the first technology basically I had as a pastor was called a PDA. Did anybody have a PDA? Do you remember those?
Public display of affection.
Right. What were they? Personal data assistant.
Oh, gotcha.
It wasn't a phone, and I had one of the first color ones. It was a colorized, and it was a Sony, and all my friends were, my pastor friends were jealous of me, but it couldn't do much, but you could take notes in it and things of that nature. So it was helpful.
Yeah, I find that, like, for me, like, one thing that we do as pastors is we have these apps where you can get audiobooks. And if I'm setting up for middle school or I'm doing some sort of, like, stuff around the church, I can just turn on an audiobook and be learning, or podcasts and be learning through those on my phone. But again, there's just not as much silence in my life. And so I think that's something that, I'm trying to learn how to program into my day, is time away from technology where it doesn't rule over me. So this is what I want to ask. It's said that we live in an attention economy. Raise your hand if you've heard the term attention economy before. This is the idea that your attention is being monetized. And so if people can grab your attention and draw it over to an app or to a device or to a screen, they've got you hooked. And then advertisers can use your attention to sell you things. We live in an attention economy where they try to grab our focus, these app developers and advertisers. How do you personally silence the noise and refocus your personal life? And can I just tell a real quick story? Okay, Jessa, no, so never mind. No. It's bad in America as far as like a device that's like on your wrist and stuff, but I visited my wife's family in Korea, and over there, every device has a jingle. Everything. And so you like push one button on the ATM and it will sing you a song. And it's like, okay, well, that's one of the 4-digit pins. So in each time, it's trying to grab your attention again and again. And I really thought when I was over there, like, they should have laws, because this is like almost dangerous, the level of distraction that these devices are allowed to input into your life. Because if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the screen on your car, and I'm not joking here, the screen on your car has an advertisement popping up on it in front of the map, that could be a problem. And so when we think about technology, I think that's something that we need to think through, is it's like, how does this stuff shape our life? And how is it making us spend our money? And how is it causing us to change how we move through the world? Anyway, so how do you set boundaries to technology in your own lives as wise people?
I think you got to throw the stuff out that's not helpful. I mean, just be vigilant and ruthless.
The whole phone, just.
And I like John Mark Comer's book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I mean, he talks about making your smartphone a dumb phone.
Yeah.
Taking all the internet off of it, just using it for the most practical matters.
Yes.
And the thing is, we all have to understand ourselves. You need to know who you are and what your entanglements are that will pull you away from Christ, and you need to eliminate them. You need to take them off. And I'll just be real honest. I mean, I took social media off my phone a couple years ago.
Yep.
It wasn't helping me.
Yeah.
It wasted time, and it sometimes, one of the things that I realized about that is that as a pastor, my ministry is mostly, my presence is here. Yep. And the people around me and in my community. And that's where I want to focus my energy, not trying to build a big following or something on social media. And so I wanted to be more present here. So I just booted it off, but I took email off last year off my phone. And, any of you guys that are old like me, you get an email on the weekend that has to do with work, and it can throw your whole weekend into a tailspin because you just saw something that you really just needed to see Monday when you got back to work. I took it off, and it hasn't bothered me at all. I mean, I have set times when I go on the computer.
Yep.
And I work through my email, and I don't let it call me. I call it when I want to, get in there with it. I have a, text message if it's an emergency and stuff like that. Yeah. And then this year I just took sports stuff off my phone, just, ESPN and things of that nature, because I can spend a lot of time just reading it's okay. It's not, like you were saying, it's not wrong, but it just takes up a lot of time. So I think, getting that stuff off that isn't helping you and setting up the time on your computer, on your laptop or your desktop where, hey, I'm going to go read ESPN articles or something like that. You can set up a time for that, or check your email a couple times a day instead of throughout the day and get sent into a tailspin. So that's been really helpful. And you had a great question in there about, is it, controlled, or are you being controlled, or are you controlling it?
Yeah.
And some of it is just making a choice, like, like you said, turn off all notifications and things like that, but just get rid of the stuff that's pulling you down and taking you away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on all of it. Johnny and I have talked a lot about this. So I feel like once I got a smartphone, realizing that it's using me, I'm not using it, and you have to ruthlessly just figure out where the weaknesses are. There's all the timer apps and things but I'll find a workaway around it, like I'll just keep, hitting the 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
So I think setting boundaries with, especially the smartphone, just taking off the apps that aren't good for you and your time. I think of cars, right? Great technology advanced pretty slowly over the course of the last 100 years. So we had time to make rules for the road and figure out, yellow lines mean this, white lines mean this, these kind of signs mean these. But the smartphone has just developed so quickly, it's hard to know what are the rules, and it's an iPhone, so I get to control it. And it's easy to say, well, that's for you, that's not for me. But I think social media especially, it's just very me focused, so you think of it as a way to communicate with people. But I have found, I deleted it completely, and I have way more meaningful conversations in person, even like just catching up with Dorothy before. I mean, it was way better than 4 months worth of scrolling and seeing posts. And it's hard to say I'm not, maybe seeing everything that everybody's experiencing, but am I actually designed and created by God to keep up with everybody?
Yes.
500 people worth of what they eat for dinner and what they wore that day. And, and do they even think of me when they're posting it? No, because they're thinking about themselves because it's an iPhone.
Yeah.
And so I think just realizing that God created us to be relational. And so how can I use my phone? It's a piece of technology as a tool, but can I use it to connect and be more present?
Yeah.
So even I think just some rules I've adopted are, like it's in my car right now because I'm here and I want to make eye contact with people and be present with people. Or Sundays trying to really, I don't open my news app because I want a Sabbath and I want to be present at church, with the Lord. So some of those things that are hard, and a lot of people have great advice out there on ways to put rules of the road on your phone.
Boundaries on your phone. And no one can do that for you.
No.
You know yourself,
Yes.
you know your weaknesses and what you need to eliminate,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of it. So
Yeah.
I really encourage you guys to just do some spring cleaning.
Yeah.
Go through the phone, just start, I don't need this. This is a waste of time, and it doesn't grow anything good up in me. I mean, to see other people's successes and it makes you feel bad. It's like, well, just get rid of that. You don't need to see all that. Just work on being who God wants you to be.
Yes.
And the people around you, your family, have conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess there are some nations, I think China just implemented children are only allowed to play 1 hour of video games a day. Isn't that right? Or it's like you can't even play video games during the weekday. They don't want their kids to be influenced by it. But we live in a society where there's never going to be that kind of top-down dictatorial rules about how you use your technology. You need to do that for yourselves. As young people, as adults, it's like this is something that you need to create in your own life, is these boundaries. Let me see, one more question. Who is someone that you know who handles technology well? Do you have anybody in your mind?
I do.
Jesus is always the right answer at church, so
Yeah, can I share? So I think my dad, has to use technology a lot for his work, and we've had a lot of conversations on how do you live people-centered lives with an iPhone. So just to share a few anecdotal things, all forms of technology are just to convenience us, right? Like we can pick up our groceries now without having to go in the store. We can buy our gas right at the pump. We can self-checkout if we do go into the grocery store. We can use Amazon to have everything delivered at home. So my dad has just really helped me in seeing, and this is kind of translating into my own personal life here, but I had a grandma that was a mom, or grandma of a baby I was seeing. She worked at a local gas station. So her shift was always the same time. So every week buy gas at the same time and not pay at the pump, but go in and have a conversation with her, which is very inconvenient to me. It would be way more convenient to just pay at the pump. But that built that relationship over 2 years, and so I see her now, I can catch up about that little grandbaby, or one of the dads that I worked with works at a local establishment for auto parts. I could have bought my light bulb that I needed for my car on Amazon, but going in, talking to him, he tells me his wife's now working at another local establishment. So when I'm out, like, I can stop there, catch up with her. And I think he's taught me that, and it's hard because it's going to always be inconvenient for you.
Yes.
Or
to live a
people-centered life. And if it's way easier to just check out at the self-checkout, but that meaningful conversation with the checkout person might be the only meaningful conversation they have all day.
Yes.
And I think that's how Jesus would live in a technology-saturated world. I think he would inconvenience himself for the good of other people.
Yeah.
So learning can be very inconvenient, but it's great in our iPhone world.
Yes. Yes.
It's wonderful. I've picked up things from individuals, different people. I can't say there's one person that I would elevate up there, but things like what Felicia said a few weeks ago about scripture before screen time, and little, points like that you can kind of take with you where you go. I wanted to add one other on just find a buddy. Find a buddy to work with your phone. Yeah. I'm focus mostly on the phone because we carry around these computers everywhere we go, and we take them in the potty. This is really interesting. What is on that phone?
Does it ever get washed?
Put a book in the potty instead of your phone. Take a break, take a vacation from the phone. Figure out how to do that. But finding a buddy, someone that you can confide in and talk with. And I was talking to Scott Garziella earlier today. We offer through Genesis, if you're interested, if you trouble with going out of bounds with your phone, like into maybe some areas a follower of Christ shouldn't be, and there's all kinds of, you can find anything you want out there, right? Yeah. We have something that's called Covenant Eyes, and you could be a part of that. Yep. And what you need is a good friend, a trustworthy friend that would be your ally, that would it's not a filtering kind of service. It has technology that if it sees anything that's out of line, it sends a report to your ally, to the person that is your accountability partner. And with the staff, we have that. And I've been doing something like this for probably 10 years, and it is great. It keeps me out of the gutter. Yep. It's just, I know I'm going to have to deal with this with an accountability partner. And, I'm certain if there's guys in here that don't have anything like that on their phone, they're going in the ditch. It's just so easy to get there. Yeah. And I know that from experience. And I just encourage you to find a buddy to, join a micro group and kind of, be confessing your sins and really hold this open, because the technology can be very useful and help you in so many ways, but it can also just wreck relationships and be very detrimental. So, find a buddy.
Absolutely.
What I'd say.
Does anybody have, we're just going to spend maybe 4 minutes going around the room quick. Does anybody have anything that they want to change about the way that they interact with technology based on this conversation tonight? If anybody would want to raise their hand and share real quick, I'll go to Deb first. Go ahead.
This conversation has made it real evident to me that in my small group, I think we need boundaries. We need to put our phones away during small group. That should be a definite time of engagement with the Lord and each other.
Wow. Good. Making boundaries, creating space. Anybody else? Anything that they'd want to share? Maybe I won't stick a mic in your face and you can just repeat. Go ahead.
I said when my kids come over. How's that go, Jonathan?
Yeah, nice seeing you. No, I like that. I do think like no phone afternoons is something that like maybe we go and we do something and the phones stay at home. All right, anybody else? Anything that they'd want to share? Anything that I want to change? Jason Peterman, go ahead.
So I want to be more mindful when I am also in a small group or just a group with just anybody talking, just, you know, if you're paying attention to each other and just even if you take your phone out for one split second just to check something and, you know, like that's being kind of like disrespectful to the others in the room. And like, I know I've found myself being judgmental when I see somebody do that in front of me. And so, you know, I think that's a respect thing too.
Darwin and I, one of the very few technology rules that we have in our house is like no phones in bed. So if we're like in bed, nobody can be scrolling, but we only ever enforce that for each other. So I'll be like, hey, honey, remember, no phones in bed. Hop off of Instagram, let's talk. And she'll do the same thing to me. She'll be like, hey, no YouTube in bed. Come on, dude. But that's a good rule. It's a good rule. Anybody else? One final one. Anything? Rules? Changes? Okay, way over here. Okay, Jeff, do you want to go real fast? Okay. Rachel, take it away.
I loved what Scott said at the beginning about making God the God of your gaps. So I really want to do that with my day-to-days of just those small in-between times of going on my phone less from those random moments and just being intentional to connect with God right there.
Yeah. I think that's one that I'm thinking through. I try to do that every once in a while driving, where it's like I don't need to listen to a podcast, or I don't need to, you know, or take the phone in the bathroom. Leave it out of the bathroom. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Colin. So one of the things that I got in the habit of doing, and it's really helped me with follow through and goal setting and things like that, is taking your background or your screensaver and making that like the 3 things that you want to be working on, your goals and things like that. So every time I open my phone, I see it and I'm reminded of what I'm actually supposed to be working on.
I like it. That is good. Set goals for your day and make the phone background. I like that. Danny, you have one? Okay.
So I think one thing that's really important is like taking like gradual steps while working towards this, because you can often be like, I'm going to make all these changes and then like it doesn't happen. So like slowly implementing it throughout your day, but also with that like being more intentional. Like we always like around our table we talked about intentionality a lot, but also like how it's around us. And I think it can be more important like to use, if you want to use social media, or like do it intentionally. Like if you have a photo, like she's like, are you posting it for yourself or are you posting it for a particular person, and send it to them, you know? So little things like that by slowly implementing it.
Yeah. That's something that I found growing up, especially in high school. It's like I know what every one of my friends are doing, and I've never been lonelier. Like I know what everybody's up to. I'm more connected mind-wise, but not relationship-wise with what they're up to. And I feel lonely in this moment when everybody's having fun on a Friday night and somehow I missed out on it, whatever it may be.